Welcome to Keep It Humane, the podcast, where we dive deep into topics surrounding kindness, compassion, and creating a more humane world, whether it's in our communities, in the workplace, or in the world of animal control and shelters. With our hosts,
Ashley Bishop.
And Ashley Bishop.
And I'm Daniel Ettinger. This show is sponsored by Tomahawk Live Trap. Check them out, livetrap.com.
It is just Bishop and I. And did you know, Wisconsin Bishop, I just saw her here in Vegas. She was walking around, that's her new job this week, walking around with that thing, that tray, where she asks you if you want a drink or not. She didn't even recognize me, bro. She has so many hats.
She's really going to murder you. You're telling everybody she's a Vegas girl.
She would love to be a Vegas girl. Why wouldn't she?
No, thank you, sir.
We love bringing the podcast to you, Keep It Humane. Brought to you by Tomahawk Live Trap. You know, I don't have my Live Trap skit, so I'm just going to make it happen. They are celebrating their 100th year of business here in 2025, and they're offering you 10% off of anything on their website. Just use the discount code Keep It Humane. That's Keep It Humane in all caps. Visit their website, livetrap.com. Don't forget to like, share, rate the podcast. And how is life? This week has been fun with some of your messages. You got some crazy going on down there in Texas.
Yeah, it's just been nuts. Like, we're so small, but I feel like I love our group because we're so understanding of what's like happening in our own respective areas. So like while I'm only maybe 100 animal facility, Dan's got like 500 animals over where he's at essentially. But like we all understand when we're not like making it like, oh, well, I have this many animals. Why are you complaining? It's like, God, dude, you just took it 16 animals today, So it's just been nuts. It's nuts.
But it's all perspective too. Like
It
though
is.
you might have a smaller size shelter, like the impact is still the same when you have to care for that many animals and you don't have space or you don't have staff, like regardless if it's 15 or if it's 50.
Yeah, and I think, there's so much respect in our group to like understand what we have going on, which I wish the whole rest of the world was like that. Because again, we always mention on the pod that we're not all the same. We all can't function the same. We all can't do things the same. Everything has to be kind of different. But yeah, man, our animal control officers are just busy, busy, busy. Everything coming through the front door. Our kitten season's a little bit later. So we're barely starting to see the big boom of it. So in the next couple of weeks, we're going to start getting them in. Thankfully, we have some good rescue partners, so hopefully we get to clear some of them out so we can help some people with some owner surrenders if we need to.
And I also want to say too, like we're about to get into the crazy, we're not even there yet. Like it is the beginning, almost, I guess it's the beginning of summer. You kick it off with Memorial Day and there's a lot. There's so much to unpack in our industry and I'm really excited when we introduce our guest here in a second. Just their perspective kind of coming at it from more of an advocacy standpoint and kind of what their take is from the whole big picture of how, like, because I'm always asking those questions, like, how can we make it better? How can we make it more efficient? How can we make it just easier for the animals and people? I mean, that's ultimately the goal for all of us. And so I'm excited to go there and unpack some of that stuff. It's been a crazy week on my end too. The girls were in town. Those are my kids. That's what I call them, the girls, because they were the girls. I had 4 teenage girls. I had my girls and then a couple friends, and it was just a fun, action-packed week. Like we did a lot of Southern California adventures, and man, I love having them around. And it's been nonstop. So the week before that, I was out in Fort Leonard Wood, which I talk about quite a bit. And I got to tell you this quick story. Check this out. So I'm leaving Fort Leonard Wood. And if you've ever been to Missouri or Fort Leonard Wood, it's not a really big town, but it does have a pretty significantly large, what would you call, like, what's a highway with lights, with traffic lights? I don't know. It's like a
major interstate?
Yeah, well, yeah, something like that. But in middle of Missouri, but it's like 6 lanes. It's busy.
Ugh.
And those who know about Missouri and the history, it's the birthplace of this crazy cat tattoo challenge, right? Like the crazy kittens that have filled up my leg. But I am leaving the base, the installation for the day to go. Actually, was that the tattoo day? No, tattoo day was on the following day.
Mm-hmm.
I was just going into town and I'm driving in lane one. So lane one is the furthest left, and it goes 1, 2, 3 to the right. And there's a little baby kitten. I'm going to throw a picture here for those watching on YouTube and Spotify, what it looks like. It was this cutest little gray and white, like striped kitten, probably 5 weeks old, that literally almost got ran over like 5 times. And I mean, it's no bigger than my hand, 5 weeks old. And I see it as I'm passing it, and I'm saying like, "Oh shit, oh shit, oh shit." And I slam, like I don't slam on my brakes, but I stopped fast enough that I caused a fender bender. But it wasn't like bad. There was no damage. None of that happened. And I
I
get
didn't
out
know
and
that
yeah, I
part.
get out and I got to put this on the video too. So I'm wearing this boot on my leg that I've had since I've had this fracture for a long time. And I'm running with this boot on into lane two in the middle of traffic. And I scoop up this freaking spicy ass feral kitten from the middle of Missouri. And I called her shelter and they don't answer. And I was mad. I was like, come on, y'all. Like, I know they close in like 10 minutes, but please answer. So they don't answer. I'm in a hotel. Like, I'm staying in a hotel there. I can't keep this kitten. Otherwise, I would have. And sure enough, I'm Googling and I see Best Friends Animal Hospital right there in town. So I just roll up with this kitten and they were all floored. They were like, oh, this kitten's so cute. And I explained to them everything. And I was like, I will call the shelter in the morning. I'll do whatever I can to help place this kitten. And they housed it overnight. They were so awesome. And then the next morning I called the shelter. They're like, yeah, we only accept dogs.
Huh?
Right? We only accept dogs. I was like, no, that's weird. They were like, there's a kitten rescue in town or a cat rescue in town who I've called, and it's been over 10 days. They still haven't called me back, by the way. But thankfully, the animal hospital fell in love with this kitten and said that they would place it. I actually have a few friends there that would have taken it if they couldn't have placed it, but they did. And that's the story that made my week a couple weeks ago.
It's always interesting to be on the opposite side of things when you're somewhere. Um, because you're so used to functioning how you do at your own agency, and then like you hit so many roadblocks and you kind of see from the outside perspective of what somebody who doesn't know what's going on in the industry when they hit these roadblocks and they get frustrated and sometimes we lose that perspective.
100%. And the irony, and it's hard for me to hold back in this, but like the whole impact that Best Friends has made with this like managed intake and live release and all this stuff. The shelter turned me down, but the Best Friends Animal Hospital accepted me. So that's the irony there. Uh, let's introduce our guest before I keep talking, and we don't want me to do that.
Mm-mm.
Christine Mott, lawyer, attorney, and author, and much, much, much more. Thank you for joining us. We're really excited to learn more about the owl that you have next to you. For those of you watching on on YouTube or Spotify, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here this morning. The owl next to me, who are watching, is Flacco the owl, who famously escaped the Central Park Zoo in 2023. And this is after living his whole life, 12 years of his life, in a solitary, very tiny, sad exhibit. He was able to enjoy, for the first time ever, adventures, being free and flying all over New York City. So he is the inspiration of my new book, Free Bird.
I love that. He was like, I broke out of Central Park Zoo, and now I'm free to eat. Hopefully, he helped with some of the rat population, but
he did actually, and that's a kind of a bittersweet thing. So he enjoyed a whole year of freedom, which was amazing for everybody who, knew his story. He was a shadow of what an owl should be. He never hooted. He lived in this terrible little exhibit, literally next door to the slamming doors of this penguin exhibit. So as a nocturnal animal, he could never get sleep. There's like screaming and slamming doors and everything. And he was all by himself in a very, very small exhibit. It's been described as about the size of a bus stop, but I recently visited it and I can confirm it's much smaller than that.
Hmm.
Wasn't able to fly. He's, by the way, a Eurasian eagle owl, which is the largest species of owl in the world. And they have a wingspan of about 6 feet wide. And normally in nature would have a territory of about 30 square miles. So to have a bird like this in captivity his whole life was just, to me, I think a sin. And so like, thousands of other people, I cheered him on as he was able to fly around. And um, there is a sad ending, of course, that he only had a year of freedom before he passed away, and he passed away sadly from a combination of eating rats who had been poisoned, rat poison, and as a result of that, he lost some of his sight and he crashed into a window.
That's so sad.
So sad. On the other hand, we can be happy for him that he had the chance to finally, after all those years, be an owl and be free. And one of the other nice things that is part of his legacy is actually New York City has now passed legislation that will ban the use of rat poison and replacing it with rat birth control, which is amazing. So he really brings on a legacy that's going to help a lot of other urban wildlife.
That sounds like that whole idea or concept of birth control, I kind of want to dig into that, but I know that this podcast doesn't have a lot of information like maybe to do that. But I wonder, like, I'm sure there's data. I can do some research on it and maybe talk about it on another episode. But I wonder how like, what's the impact versus them using poison? Are we actually seeing a decrease versus because they can't reproduce? And that's truly the segue into like our industry where we talk about it all the time is access to care, spay and neuter. So having that prophylactic for that rat population, which we know is crazy in New York, is really fascinating.
It is. And I mean, anecdotally, I have a friend who is the founder of a farm animal sanctuary in upstate New York, Catskill Animal Sanctuary. And she told me for years and years, they have used birth control for as a pest solution. And it works. It 100% works. And I mean, as you mentioned, that's the heart of what's going on with dog and cat overpopulation. I mean, these are, rats can reproduce, I want to say their cycle is something like 20 to 30 days. And, one rat can create hundreds, if not thousands of rats. So I think it's a brilliant move. And I love that something good can be born out of, Flacco's tragic passing.
So what brings you to animal welfare other than Flacco and his story? Did you have any experience before that?
Definitely. I would consider myself as a lifelong animal person. Became interested in helping animals when I was, I think, 10 or 11 years old. I became a vegetarian and, kind of learned about more, I guess, industrial uses of animals and, all the horrible suffering that takes place. I'm an attorney. I've spent many years working on animal law and policy issues. I chaired the New York City Bar Association's Animal Law Committee for many years. And some of the things I worked on are things like banning the sale of cats and dogs at a retail level in New York City, trying to have better regulation of pet dealers, puppy mills, things like that. So running the gamut from farmed animal issues, companion animal issues, the overlap between environmental and animal law issues, overlap between child abuse, domestic violence issues, and animal cruelty. I spent a lot of time, I guess, in a lot of different issues, all with the goal of trying to help animals. So I suppose it was kind of a natural progression. I'm a mom. I have 2 little girls. I read a lot of kids' books, and when I learned about the story of Flacco, it was so inspiring, and it was a feel-good story while he was out and about and experiencing freedom. And I have done a lot of work in terms of the impact of captivity on wild animals and so many animals. I mean, because it's quite literally impossible for a zoo or any place to try to replicate a natural habitat of a wild animal. We talked about Flacco having a natural habitat of 30 square miles. I mean, if you look at elephants, any other wild animals that are kind of the mega fauna that you see in today's zoos, what they're living in is a real sad approximation of what they're meant to be living in. And as a result of that, a lot of them engage in stereotypical behaviors of pacing or, banging their heads, all sorts of things that demonstrate that they've really basically lost it psychologically as a result of captivity. And there's so many, even now, you can look at New York City, you can look at LA, the LA Zoo right now. There are so many instances that are kind of more high profile where more and more people are speaking out against captivity of animals. In New York City, the Bronx Zoo, there are 2 elephants, Happy and Patty, who have been in captivity. They were taken from the wild about 50 years ago. And they lived in very substandard conditions. And now they're at the point where they're both in kind of solitary confinement, which is just really cruel for an elephant, who are meant to be pack animals that have a very sophisticated social structure. It's a similar situation at the LA Zoo, where there's an elephant there who people have wanted to be transferred to sanctuary, but they're just transferring her to another zoo.
I really learned about zoochosis, which you were just describing. Believe it or not, from my daughter when she was in 4th grade. I think it was either 4th or 5th grade. They did a project, and she was like, "Dad, I'm never going to a zoo again." And I was like, "Why?" And she was like, "Because of like what you were describing, how they pretty much go crazy in captivity." And I've had the blessings to, volunteer at a wolf sanctuary in the past and be involved in some of that. Just, I guess, like some of that world. But then when you go to the zoo settings and you kind of see, oh, well, there's a conservation aspect, but then you look at the animal and you see kind of how it's living. It's sad, and I'm not here to like just bash on zoos, but I think it's important that we understand and know that like there could be better outcomes for them.
Absolutely. And I think a better outcome is kind of a sanctuary model where animals are there and, these are animals that for whatever reason cannot be released into the wild. Maybe they're orphaned, they have some injury, but the organizations are working to treat them as best as possible. Their best interests come first, not the kind of more entertainment value, which, let's be honest, that's what most people go to zoos for, right? It's an empty Sunday and you want someplace to take your kids. So I think if we truly want to be doing good work towards conserving and helping these wild animals, it's things like sanctuaries. It's getting to the source of why these animals are endangered and having problems in the first place. Is it poaching? Is it that we're destroying the rainforest and habitats because of industrialized animal agriculture? There are so many things. And, I think you can see it in the shelter world too, right? You are working at kind of stopping the bleeding, right? Of these animals that are tossed into the shelters. There's no place for them to go, but why are they there? It's because of people aren't spaying and neutering. People don't have the education to know how to take care of, that type of animal. So I think it's a more holistic approach. You can't just say, okay, we're going to keep animals in a box and let people see them, and that's going to take care of our, the animal endangerment issues. It's not. In the same way, I think from a shelter perspective, just adopting them out, that's not going to fix it, right? You need to be looking at all angles to help stop the problem in the first place.
I feel like you said something really powerful there. It's, what I feel like you alluded to, and let me know if I'm wrong. It's like it's a people problem on both ends. With both wildlife conservation, sheltering. At the end of the day, if you go all the way down to how this started, it's a Homo sapien problem. It's behaviors and just, and we be this week was tough. I was sitting on my phone and, just typing out, that social media post and, I was backing it out, because this or that is being said about this or that shelter and they're using this type of language and whatnot. And I just feel like, are we ever going to get to a point where we aren't the problem?
We could try. But hit the nail on the head. We are the problem. Sadly, we like to think of ourselves as, we are these superior creatures that do all these wonderful things. We do so many horrible things that destroy our natural world and really have such a detrimental impact on animals. So it is our duty to take a good hard look in the mirror and see what we can do to reverse that damage.
I think it's wonderful that you have a kind of a real diverse look on our background on what our industry is, because you can see it from the legislative aspect, you can see it from the advocate aspect, and then you can just see it as like a normal parent that is trying to raise kids in this society. And like we talked about it on the show, and since you're an attorney and have some legislation background, I will challenge you with my legislative idea that I think I don't know. I think we need more push on this, because it's not about the aspects of really the financial compensation. It's really changing the way that animals or pets are viewed in society. And so that's creating a way to, like with kids, when you do your taxes, you get a tax credit for it, right? Like that's the thing. Why can't we do that with our pets? Now, maybe we can't do it with every single pet that we have in the house, but a reasonable number. And they have to be, we would have to make sure they're spayed or neutered, vaccinated, microchipped, etc. But then there is some sort of tax credit to show that, yeah, they're more than just property. They are part of the family.
Absolutely. I mean, I love that idea. I think we can kind of expand that to so many other things. I mean, I'm thinking of issues like, Hurricane Katrina, where people were forced to leave behind pets because the shelters wouldn't accept their pets. And that led to new federal legislation that made conditional receipt of federal funds only if your local emergency planning took into account planning for family pets. I think there was just a bill signed in Florida this week. There's increased penalties if you leave behind a pet in a storm and things like that. So absolutely, I think it's, look, the law, the black and white letter of the law says that animals are property. That's the heart of basically every problem we have with animals, because there are people like us that care about the animals. We know that they have more value than a couch or a lamp, even though that's how the law would categorize them, right? On the other hand, you'll see little developments in the law which will acknowledge otherwise. I mean, the fact that there are, again, it's a patchwork, but anti-cruelty laws, I love your little companion there, or laws that say it's okay to break a window in a car if there's a dog or a cat that needs to get out. Those would be kind of exceptions, right? Where we're saying, okay, well, it's property, but that's property that's a little bit different than a couch or a lamp. But I think we're clearly not there on the law. What I think we need to push to get there is, of course, the public opinion. The law always lags behind years and years what the public sentiment is. But I think we probably still have a long way to go in terms of educating people, making them more aware of why it's important to care about, your dogs and cats. So many people do and would treat them like family members, but I guess there's the other half that is still learning and getting there. So as a result of that, the law just hasn't kept up with maybe popular opinion. But I'm all for things like your tax credit and anything that would better position animals in terms of the law and how they are treated.
Agreed. I've been watching our legislation go through their ups and downs right now, and unfortunately, two of the most important bills for us, which is the no sale of puppy mill dogs in pet stores, didn't pass just due to one person. And then, of course, our animal control as first responders didn't get passed either. So, it's just everybody, all the way up to our legislators want the problem fixed, but they won't give us the tools to help fix the issues.
That's very disappointing, and I'm sure you work so hard to try to move this forward. I'd say keep going, and this is where you take from playbook from other places. Whoever that was, that one person that held it up, don't let the public forget that. And I'm sure there are certain lobbyists that, for their own reasons, don't want these more progressive animal bills to pass because they're afraid of a domino effect, right? They think if you're treating dogs and cats better, then somehow we're going to have to treat the pigs and the chickens better. I hope we can do all those things, but it's really unfair when they will come in, these people that represent like big ag and stuff want to stop things like helping, a ban on retail sale of dogs and cats, or expanding, animal control officers' rights. And that's so important because, if you look at things like the link between animal cruelty, family violence, child abuse, elder abuse, it's right there. I mean, there's so much research that's gone on the past 30 plus years, so that even if you are not a so-called animal person, there's so much reason for you to care about the people aspect of it. When we're helping animals, we're truly helping people too in the community. It makes everybody happier and safer to have a better, kinder approach for animals. So I hope that you guys keep trying.
Yeah, we have a nonprofit that keeps fighting for, and hopefully next legislative session we'll kind of be able to get through it. And it's frustrating to read some of the comments of some of the lobbyists too. I think one of the big comments for the puppy mill bill was, it's going to send all of these backyard breeders. I'm like, it's already a problem. Like it's already a problem. It's not going to go underground or any of that. We see it every day. It's frustrating that these big lobbyists like the AKC and those types of organizations who are just don't don't fully see our perspective on things and what we're truly seeing. I mean, it's an epidemic of your doodles right now. I mean, we're seeing them come in, they're in awful shape. We just got one in the other day. It's just so frustrating, because if they were sitting in our shoes, then they would see what big of a problem is. And a lot of us who are in the industry are not against, breeding as far as,
Responsible. Yeah.
yeah,
Responsible
breeding.
breeders.
Yeah, we're not against that because, we got here for a reason. These companion animals are here because of us, and there's something special. I'm a Chihuahua lady, as you could see. We all love our breeds and whatnot, but there's a responsible way to do it. And we haven't reached a point where that has crossed over to where we can meet in the middle.
I mean, it's really sad, and I think it just probably comes down to money. I mean, the
Mhm.
AKC, they're a trade association that represents people that want to breed dogs, and so that's their job to to defend that position, and they make money off it. They get dues from their members, and they want to keep getting those big dues. I'm sure they have a very large salary for their CEO, and there you go, right? So yeah, it's just like anything, you're up against moneyed interests, and that's the sad part, and that's where I think just more public education comes into play. Some people see, AKC, oh, that means like gold standard of, my dog is really special. If more people understand that that's what it is. It's just a trade association that's trying to bolster up people that are breeding dogs. Maybe they wouldn't put so much weight on the opinion of an organization like that.
And I find that I mean, there's a big saying, more money, more problems in some aspects. And just because that focus is just money, I don't know. I look at the current climate, and we've kind of, I'm gonna hang on one second. I'm sure you can hear the motorcycle in the background. You didn't hear that?
I know
Oh,
I can't, not even in my earphones.
okay. That's good. That's good. Um, it's good to know. But when you look at our current climate with our veterinary shortage, it's kind of calmed down a little bit. You're not hearing as much conversation, but I often talk about why are we not creating programs to offer scholarships to some of these groups that have hundreds of millions of dollars to entice the next veterinarians to really get people, going to the communities that are underserved, like they don't have the veterinarians in the community, and try to, inspire people to come into those communities by offering some sort of, whether it is a scholarship or whether it is some sort of subsidized, um,
Incentive.
yeah, exactly, incentives to get them in there. Because we need more focus on really being community based. The problem's a community problem. So when we attack it as a community solution, I think we can make a better impact. But the current climate is jump on this national trend. The problem is national trends aren't
They
community
don't,
specific. Yeah.
yeah, they don't work for us, like our
Yeah,
little municipal shelter.
exactly. But it helps raise money. And that's the problem that I have. And that's where my frustration comes in, is we need to find ways to really drill down.
I mean, I love that idea. Like if someone's listening from the AKC, I think that would be a great way to kind of maybe refresh their reputation a little bit. I mean, let's be honest, they are the reason for a lot of the overpopulation, right? So it would be the responsible thing to do if they could set aside some of their, many funds to do something like that, to maybe fund a scholarship or placement of vets, as they're suggesting, in areas that really desperately need that to deal with overpopulation issues. I think that would be a wonderful thing to do, just because it's a good thing to do, but also, I mean, from a a business or PR perspective, I think that'd be pretty savvy. So I hope someone's listening. Take that idea.
It would be smart. It would really be smart. I just, it's frustrating too. And also too, when you have the organizations that are just like, well, we'll throw money at it. Well, money doesn't last forever. It needs to be a continuous thing in order to help communities get to a point where they can sustain, proper companion animal health at any given time. So, for me and my goal in being in this industry, specifically in municipal shelters, is to do just that, because anybody can have their pet get loose and breed. And just because you're a top tier owner doesn't mean that your fence didn't blow down in the hurricane that happened and you didn't find your dog for 3 days and there's a dog in heat, 6 houses down, and then here you go. That my goal is, regardless of the situation, everybody's pets needs to be spayed and neuter, because anything can happen.
Right. What do you think about, I mean, I've heard, there's some, I'll call them rumors, where some people are putting out the information that spaying and neutering your pet somehow is causing them to get cancer, or have you heard of these bizarre things that I am sure are put out there by groups that want to continue breeding? But have you had people come to you and say, like, I don't want to spay and neuter my dog or cat because I'm afraid it's going to hurt my dog?
Yeah, I think it's a big trend that's happened within the last 5 years or so. I am in a city where we have a large veterinary school literally down the road from the shelter. And yeah, it's a big issue right now where, we shouldn't be fixing anything under 6 months, especially in your large breed dogs. A lot of the research that I've read so far, is very minimalistic. They're really looking at a very small portion of animals that I feel, that genetic testing needs to go all the way back to who the Darren and Sam are, in order to figure out whether or not that's going to be the actual issue. I just, yeah, I think it's a bunch of BS, and we're seeing a lot of, especially here in our local area with the veterinarians, they're like, well, we're not going to fix anything until after 6 months. And well, that's not going to help. Some kittens can go into heat, much less than that. There's just,
But people forget, no one has on their calendar, oh, 6 months, time to go in, and
yeah.
it's that bit of misinformation that causes that confusion. And then you have people that, as you're saying, don't want to do it.
It's almost a scare tactic.
Well, that I was just going to say, like, the amount of misinformation, period, like in our society or culture, like you can run with anything, and that's the problem. Whether you research it and want to find data that says it's okay and good to spay or neuter at 8 weeks before they leave the shelter, or you should wait till they reach adult maturity at 1 year to 18 months. Like, you'll find research that supports both, and that's the biggest problem. Like, I think there is some misinformation out there, and at the end of the day, like, the biggest problem that we face is overpopulation, and that overpopulation comes from lack of resources, lack of education, and lack of true, like, there's not a true leader in the spay and neuter advocacy world. And one of the things that you didn't mention, Bishop, that I thought you'd say, because of just being in Texas, and I know this from my own experience in some of the communities that I've worked, culturally, we don't spay and neuter. Like, that's just not in our culture. And that's a whole nother conversation that may have to do with religion. It may have to do with, what's the other word?
Cheesemo?
That's the word I was going to say, but I thought it would sound better if you said it. So thank you.
Yeah, I mean, you're very much right. I mean, we don't get a lot of it these days. I think when I first started in industry back in, 2009, I feel like we were seeing a lot of that, like, well, I don't want to take my dog's manhood. I mean, do you have some kind of telepathic, you know, something that your dog's telling you, like, bro, don't take my nudicles? Like, I don't get it. We still get it every now and then, but it's not as prevalent as it was in the past. But we do get a lot of people who come in and they're like, well, do they have to be fixed before they leave? Absolutely. Absolutely. This animal is not leaving those doors until they are fixed.
Absolutely. Christine, let's transition a little bit more into the book, Free Bird. And I just want people to know, like, where can they get it? Your website is christinemott.com. But like, is there other places that your book's available?
Yeah, it's on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, bookshop.com. My publisher is Lantern Publishing and Media. We publish a lot in the realm of animal welfare, animal protection. You can go to the Lantern Publishing website. It will direct you to all online places you can get it. It's also in bookstores. I just finished a nice little book tour in New York City at the Corner Bookstore on Madison Avenue, Greenlight Books in Brooklyn. So they have hard copies there, and I'm working on doing a West Coast tour too. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun just trying to introduce kids to the concept of treating animals with kindness. My goal was really to create a book that kids could connect with, and it didn't feel kind of preachy or scary. I mean, sometimes it's hard to talk to kids about serious topics, right? I have a 3-year-old and a 7-year-old, and they're big animal lovers, and they're pretty well versed on things. But I did have some children's books that dealt with issues that I bought them because I thought they would be good ways to introduce. And I think it's a really delicate balance of kind of wanting to teach and spread a good message and doing it without maybe turning off kids. So I really tried to do that. So the story is based on Flacco and has 2 real themes. I guess the first theme that I think comes through is the idea of following your dreams. And that's something, every kid can relate to. And my goal was trying to connect the idea that kids have these dreams and wants and needs, and helping them understand that animals have feelings like that too. And so the underlying message, of course, is animals have feelings, and not unlike our own. And because of that, we need to care about them and think about how we're treating them. And of course, then I guess the third message is also just asking kids and parents to maybe take a better look at how we are currently treating animals, and use Flacco as that example, and trying to put themselves in the position of an animal like Flacco. Do you think that Flacco had more fun and enjoyed his life when he was in the zoo, or when he was able to be free? So kind of putting all these questions in a way that kids can understand. Some of them are more, I guess, subliminal messages, but trying to do it in a way that kids can connect and feel happy and excited about it, and maybe not scare them away from some issues that are important issues that I think we should be talking to our kids about.
Absolutely. What other projects do you have working or going on right now?
Well, this is my first book, so I'm still kind of in the promotional and love stage of my book.
The honeymoon phase.
So definitely still working on that. I would love the idea of maybe creating something else in the future, but I keep myself busy. Mom of 2 kids. I'm actually on the board of my local animal shelter, Paws of Coronado, and
So we're almost neighbors.
yeah. So I try to keep busy with a lot of other things that are, in my community, and helping animals in any way I can. But I'm hoping that more books will be in the future.
That's great.
And I love how you stay, keeping in the community, because I think what's been lost a lot, at least with the major players in animal welfare, is making sure that you help those in your community in order to fix the issue, kind of nationwide. I feel like it gets lost because even for us, there's a lot of advocates in our area who are saying, well, this dog over here is on, this euthanasia kill list. Well, I also have a shelter full of, wonderful dogs who are just sitting here. We're not saying, bringing up the alarms, but yeah, every shelter's full regardless, and everybody should think that. I don't know. It's been a frustrating week.
Yeah, no, I know. I mean, you'll see, but sometimes it's, I guess, the pros and cons of that, right? You'll see that
Mm.
at one instance of a dog or cat that makes the national headlines, and then everybody wants to adopt that one dog, and that dog has a happy ending, and that's great. But yeah, the people don't necessarily think about all the other animals. But sometimes that can be a great springboard for that, right? If you can
Great.
connect one animal. And that's what I was trying to do with Freebird and Flacco. If you can get somebody to really connect with that one animal, I think that opens their eyes and their hearts to maybe think, well, it wasn't just that one animal that experienced, cruelty and needs a home. There's so many others. So I think the best way is to use those instances as much as it might feel like, well, gosh, why are you talking about that? And I have my whole shelter full. Using that and bringing it back, to your own local community. And yeah, I mean, like the old quote, says, think global, act local. Like that's where you're going to make the most changes in your own community. Changing hearts and minds, even of your own neighbors. When you go out and say, like, this is my rescue dog, see how great he is, versus, the people that are still wanting to go out and buy, a fancy special breed. But yeah, I take a lot of great pleasure in working on a local level. That's where you can really see the change, I think, the most. And that's not to say you shouldn't work on, more national issues. We need that. Of course. It just means that I think we need, it takes all kinds. This is I think, the animal protection movement is one of those where it really does need people helping from all angles, using whatever skills you may have to help.
And not get siloed by maybe some different views or different, like, I think that's the biggest thing that we have right now. Like, if you don't agree with somebody's, like, we know, our listeners know, like, I'm not a fan of the language save them all and no kill, because I feel it's divisive. But that doesn't mean I don't like some of the things that organization does. And that doesn't mean I wouldn't, like, consider working with them to help make the communities better places for animals. But because I don't buy into that language, it's an immediate turnoff for them. And I don't think it should be that way. I think we should be allowed to have hard conversations and agree to disagree, but at the same time, focus on what's the priority, and that's getting our communities really the help that they need, and getting these animals the awareness that, like you were saying, Bishop, like, we have these groups, these advocates that'll come in and make a big stink about an animal that's on a euthanasia list for biting somebody, but then there's no conversation about the dog that's been sitting at your shelter for 283 days. That's the biggest thing, is, like, our priorities are so messed up. And I think it's okay to have differing, like, maybe differing whys, like why you do things, but you can have that opinion and still work together for the same, hopefully, goal. And that's just as we love to say on this show, is help people.
Help animals.
I was waiting for you, Bishop. Thank you.
Doesn't this go back to what we were saying before? It's a human problem. This is where people
100%.
And as a result, the animals are penalized. I mean, you can see it with the political issues too. I mean, whether you're, you swing left or right. I mean, right now there are some great things happening where, a bunch of animal testing labs have been shut down by the current administration. I mean, look, can't say I'm a big fan on a lot of fronts, but you got to, acknowledge the wins where you
take the wins. Yeah.
And the animals don't care if it's somebody in the left or right that saved them. They just care that they're being saved. So it's the same thing with infighting within the animal, protection rights community. It's just, let's just stay focused on who we're trying to help.
Absolutely.
Whatever political or, organizational differences. So it's very frustrating.
It is.
And look, I agree 100%. Yeah, sorry.
No, go ahead, Dan.
No, I was just going to say, like, we lose sight of that. And it's not about, I'm not into politics. That's not my thing. Like, I look at it through a different lens, but I'll say that same, that's, what do we call it again? When you just used the word, administration, sorry. The same administration was the one that finally got the PACT Act signed into law to make that. And that was floating around for like 10 years prior to it being signed in 2019. And so regardless of the administration, like, we have to do what's right for the animals. And I feel like, we're still, like, pretty new in the animal welfare industry in this country, and there's so much more that we can do. And I think it's great having someone like you that has that attorney background, that you can look at things through that lens. So hopefully, like, if any of our listeners have questions that, like, maybe on the more legislative or advocacy type things, that they can go through your website, reach out, and maybe have some conversations about how we can continue to build a better community for all.
Yeah, please do. And again, I mean, a lot of it comes back to local stuff. It's, trying to think about what issues you see in your own community. How can they be fixed? I mean, in Texas are working on the retail bans of animals. That's been successful in a lot of other communities. So keep at it. I mean, things like that make such a big difference. So just again, thinking on a local level, there's so much you can do in local, whether it's a ballot measure, city council ordinance, there's a lot to be done. So a lot of power there in trying to change the law. And again, it might seem small if it's on a local level. It makes a huge difference to the animals in that community.
It really does. So we were able to pass it local for our city, thankfully, and our sister city next door as well. So both of us are no puppy mill, facilities and anything like that. And we're just trying to get it throughout the state because, our big Mecca areas, Dallas, Houston, are just, they're seeing it. And, when one county passes it, then they're just moving to the outside of wherever it's allowed. And, it just domino effect.
Well, Christine, we really enjoyed having you on today. There's so much more that we can talk about. You're always welcome to come back on and talk more if there's ever anything that you want to chat about. We really appreciate your time today.
Well, thank you so much. And I'll just give one last plug for my book. I'm donating half of all the proceeds to the Wild Bird Fund, which is a 501c3 nonprofit in New York that works on rescuing and rehabilitating wildlife. They say birds in the name, but it's not just birds. They've helped squirrels, possums, all sorts of animals that get injured or orphaned, and they help them get back into the wild. So they're a wonderful organization. And, like we're saying, they saw a need in their community and they're doing a great job. And I hope for all the listeners out there, keep doing the work that you can in your own community because it makes such a big difference. And bravo to you both. Thank you for having me and for all the good work that you guys do for your communities.
No, thank you for coming on and advocating for the industry overall and just bringing your experience. It's always great to have people that come on that are, pulling from different areas, and they can see the whole perspective. Because like that, I always say on the show, sometimes I get to lose sight of that. I'm just so focused on what we have going on that it's hard to kind of see the outside perspective sometimes. So thank you so much for coming on, and kudos to you and your book. And I'm sure it's doing well already, and we're excited to promote it for you as well.
Thank you so much, guys. Well, enjoy Vegas. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
Thank you. And thanks for everyone listening. Remember to check out our website, keepithumane.com, all the socials, Keep It Humane on everywhere you do the social stuff. Please like, share, rate the podcast. And as always, let's continue to help people.
Help animals.
And
keep it humane.
Keep it humane. Fantastic.